So here it is. Similar looking in format to the ones that you've seen in the past. Again, there are the points at the top. 4 is the highest. 3 is going to be what you need for proficient. 2 is developing, so that is where you're not quite proficient, but you're not too far off. It just needs a little bit more work. And 1 is not shown here, but 1 would equal a novice, and that's what we don't want. So you can figure out what novice is sort of on your own because it misses any of the elements of 2. So I'll sort of explain the first couple ones with you, but then I think it'll make sense. So let's take a look here. I'm going to highlight a couple key ideas. So let's start with 4 for ideas. So again, the way that we want to look at this rubric is to shoot for the highest grade, and if it doesn't have one of those elements, then it would move down to a 3. If it's missing one of the things it needs for 3, it would move down to a 2, and if it's missing something for 2, it moves down to 1. Okay, so in order to earn a 4 for ideas, you must include 3 or more specific and realistic design ideas. They must be focused, convincing, and creative ways to improve the middle school experience. So for this, your ideas must be creative. They must be realistic, something that you could actually do, and focused. So what that means is that it's going to be a really clear idea that somebody could maybe go out and do right away, something that is relatively easy to do, so that it would really be helpful for people that run schools. Falling short of that would be a 3. So for that, it still includes 3 or more design ideas, but these don't necessarily need to be realistic. They just have to be believable. So something that is not like out of a fantasy world. So you can't have, I think that we should have a 6th through 80-year-old school, because if 6 through 12 is good, then 6 through 80 years old would be even better. It's not quite believable. So 3 or more. You still need 3 for both 4 and 3. In order to be proficient, you've got to have 3 ideas. And for this may just improve the middle school experience. So maybe it's an idea that it sounds good at first, but when you really dig into it, you wonder, would this really make a difference? Would this really improve the school? So that's something where, you gave it a shot, it sounds reasonable, but it may not quite work. So you would still get credit for that. And then finally, moving down to a 2 for this. This is where it includes 3 or more design ideas. And again, actually, you do need to have 3 for everything. So if you're missing one single idea, you automatically move down to a 1 on that, which is not good. So make sure you've got at least 3 ideas. You can get support on that. I think that you have some time to brainstorm today and tomorrow. So that can be something where you can use me as a resource if you're struggling for ideas. We can try to come up with something. But, I know Time to Ban Middle School has one paragraph where it includes like 6 different ideas. So if you're having trouble finding ideas that you're really passionate about and you're short of 3, sometimes you just have to kind of suck it up and go for it. So, and choose one that you may not love but would work. The ideas may be too similar, so maybe you've got 2 ideas that really kind of are the same thing, or they may not appropriately improve the middle school experience. So, of course, if you have anything that's not school appropriate, I'm going to dock you points, better than that. Or if it wouldn't really improve it at all, then you would move down to a 2. And of course, anything short of that, if you have 2 ideas or anything that isn't related to the middle school experience, then you would move down to a 1. So I'll do the next one as well, and then I'll just quickly sort of go through the other ones here. So evidence, you need to cite evidence from 4 or more sources using both direct quotes and paraphrasing. So for a 4 on this, for exemplary, you need to use a variety of different styles in your writing. So you need to quote things directly. So that means word for word, you're using quotation marks and everything like that to quote somebody. Those are awful quotation marks, but you know what I mean, to quote somebody. But you're also paraphrasing, And what paraphrasing means is you are summarizing in your own words what somebody else is saying. You're still giving them credit. You would say, according to Kevin Hansen, he thinks that middle schoolers should blah, 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 blah. So you still give them credit, you're still citing that evidence, but you're using it in your own words instead of just like pulling the quote directly. Moving down to 3 there, it cites evidence from 2 or 3 sources using direct quotes or paraphrasing. So for this, you can just choose one or the other. So if you feel more comfortable rewriting stuff in your own words, you can just paraphrase, or more likely, at this point, you'd probably feel more comfortable just pulling a direct quote out. And if that's the case, that's fine. That would give you proficient. So again, some of the big details there between a 4 and a 3, besides just quotes and paraphrasing, is this idea that for a 4, you have 4 sources, and for a 3, you have 2 or 3. And then moving on to 2 for this. For this, you attempt to cite evidence. So you do try to cite evidence from 2 sources, but maybe the quotes that you used or the paraphrasing you wrote was tough to understand, or maybe it didn't quite go with your idea. Maybe they just don't really have too much to do with each other, and there was an error there in reading the quote or understanding it. And of course, anything less than that is a 1. So if you do not have 2 sources, that automatically brings you down to a 1 there. Analysis. This is something that's going to be a little tricky. I'm not going to talk too much about it right now because we will spend some time in class going through it. But basically, an analysis is where you explain how your evidence supports your idea. So it's where you go through and you really make a connection between how does this quote that I used really prove that my idea is a good idea. So in order to get a 4, you need insightful and thorough analysis. That means that it's got a really sort of critical thinking bent to it. Like you know a lot. I can tell that you know a lot about this topic. It really shows maybe some creative thought, some unique thinking. And thorough means that it's really, really complete. That you go through and you cover like step by step exactly what about this quote supports your idea. And remember that the evidence must support your design idea. To move down to a 3 if you weren't quite there for a 4, and this is a tough one for a 4, but your 3 includes maybe more of an explanation than an analysis. Again, an analysis is more critical. You're breaking apart the quote sort of step by step and talking about it. Or explanation, maybe you're using words more like this quote proves my idea is good because this. So you're still explaining it, but maybe it's just not quite at that level of analysis yet. But it still explains how the evidence itself will support the idea. And 2, if you're not quite proficient on that, again, that word attempt, so you do try it. So you're trying to explain it, but it may not be successful. So maybe it's not clear exactly what you're trying to explain. Maybe I'm not entirely convinced that this idea is actually supported by the evidence, things like that. And then, of course, anything less than that, if you don't at least attempt to have explanation for each of your quotes, then you would move into a 1. And then finally, craftsmanship here. This just means that for a 4, I can see great effort and care. There's attention to detail. It's a beautiful project. It's something that's pretty and nice to look at, and consideration of elements of design. That is a handout that I will give you if you want to read that and look over what that means for craftsmanship. I'll show you sort of what those elements of design are so that you can consider them in your work. So they're just some sort of guidelines that you can use to make sure that your work looks good. Moving down to a 3 on this. The project does show effort and care, so I can tell that you didn't just like throw it together the night before it was due. I can tell that you did at least take some time on it, but maybe you could have spent a little bit more. You do have some attention to detail and thoughtful design. So again, you're not really having any typos. You're not having sort of spelling or grammatical errors, because I do want you to go through revision with this. And I can tell that you gave some thought to like the layout and stuff like that. You didn't just like start working and go where it took you. You had a plan. And then finally, for a 2, I can tell that your project seems rushed, maybe a little bit sloppy, but you still worked at it. So maybe you did it the night before, but you were up until midnight doing it. I don't recommend that. You should be spending the time in class and working consistently, because you're going to have some time to work on this. But if it appears to be rushed, or if it's a little sloppy, I can tell that you rushed through it, then you would move down to a 2. And if I really can see that you didn't put much effort at all into this, that's when you would run into a 1. Words about this: I know that some of us have practiced more at art and feel more confident in our art skills than others. So I'm not going to judge you if you are trying to make art and you try your best, and maybe your best isn't quite up to snuff with what somebody else's best is. And I'm in the same boat, and that's fine. I'll be basing your grades off of your individual effort, what I know you're capable of, and what I know you can do when you put that effort in. And that's pretty much it, just to sort of go over the points here at the bottom. So exemplary, if you score 16 or 15, so that allows you to get 4 in 3 of these, but one of them could be a 3. So that would be an exemplary. A proficient is going to be a 15 to 11. So that is if you have maybe only 2 of these 4 and another 2 of them as a 3, that would be proficient. Or if you've got at least 3 of them proficient, with 1 developing, then you also are able to get a proficient on that. Developing is an 8 to a 7, so if you have anything less than 2 done for the 3, then you would move down to a 2. However, once you have more than 1 2 that is a 1, then you move down to novice. So novice is equal to or less than 6. So if you have a 6 or a 5, a 4, 3, 2, 1, that would be novice, which is not what we want. So if you do have novice, or developing, or proficient, even if you have proficient and you want to go back and revise it for an E, please do that. But for developing and novice, definitely you're going to need to go back and make those changes after talking with me about some of the things you can do to prepare. So it's a pretty long video. Thank you for bearing with it. Lots of things in here that I know are new. It's a big project. We're in it together. I'm here to support you. If you have any questions about this, I want you to put them in the comments below, and I'll try to answer them myself. Or if you feel like you've got a pretty good idea of what to expect from the assignment and you want to try answering it, you're welcome to do that too, and to help out your classmates a little bit. So again, best of luck on this. When you're finished understanding the rubric, you're going to move on to the next assignment, which is brainstorming. I'll also include one more video where I go through my example. Thanks.